Summer is here, and with the kids out of school, I have been finding their electronics all over the house, and I knew I needed to find a solution. What I came up with is this awesome charging station. It mounts on the wall and holds 2 phones, 2 tablets, and even a spot for their Bluetooth headset. And here on the bottom, there's space for a power strip for all of the electronics to plug into, so nobody has to worry about trying to find a brick or losing their cords. And I've partnered with CraigTool.com to share the build plans for this absolutely free. I'm going to show you how I built it, and then you can head over there to get the build plans for yourself. I've started by cutting out all of the pieces for the charging station except for one. I didn't cut the 1x2 that will be spanning the top because I want to cut that one to fit. Anytime I have a board that will go over the width of 2 boards, my 1xs are supposed to be 3/4 of an inch thick, but I'm not going to rely on that. So I'm going to cut that to fit. But everything else can be cut before we get started on the assembly. So I'm building this out of basic 1x2s, 1x6s, and 1x4s. And I've got these 1x6s for these sides. And I'm going to start by adding an angle to those to create kind of a spot at the bottom to hide all of the cords, and a little bit of an angle so all of the devices will have a little bit of an angle on them when they rest in the charging stations. So to do that, I'm just going to measure 1.5 inches over on the top here. I'm going to measure 4¼ inches up from the bottom here, draw a line. Then I'm going to cut along that line. I'm going to take it to my ACS by Craig because I have it and it makes quick and easy work of cutting angled boards. But if you don't have an ACS, you can still make this. You can cut this with a jigsaw. You can use a jig on your table saw, or you can use your circular saw. And you can use something like the Craig AccuCut to make sure that is nice and straight. Sides are ready, and I have 2 more things that I need to adjust before I can start assembling. So for the board that is going to be the very front of our little box that hides all of our cords, I'm going to be drilling a hole to create a crescent in the front. That'll just make it so I have a place to place a finger to lift and lower the lid. Also, I've got one board that is going to hold the wireless headphones that my kids have that need to be charged. And so what I'm going to be doing is I've bought a 1¼ inch dowel, and I'm going to drill a 1¼ inch hole all the way through. I'm going to split this in half and then center it on each section. I'm going to take that over to my drill press and do that. If you don't have a drill press, you can use a drill guide. The most important thing is for the dowel that's going to hold your headphones, you do want to keep that as vertical as possible so that the dowel isn't a little wonky once you get it glued in. Okay, next up is going to be adding pocket holes to all the pieces so I can assemble the charging station. Now I'm going to be adding the 1x2 to the bottom of these 1x6 boards, and that is what the tablets and the phone will rest on. So I'm going to put a few pocket holes along the bottom, as well as all of these pieces are going to get pocket holes on both sides in order to attach them to the sideboards. The only one that's not getting pocket holes are the 1x2s and the piece that is for the lid. Now it's time to assemble, and this is going to be pretty easy assembly. I'm going to focus on putting all the pieces on one side first, and then I'll attach it to the other side because all of these pieces are 20 inches. So we're going to take and attach our 1x2s to the bottom here, and those are going to be attached to the top, and I'm setting them back 3/4 of an inch, but keeping the same distance from the front, or sorry, the same angle as this on the front. And then I'm going to put the second one down a little bit, and on the bottom for the box I'm going to be using one of these as the bottom, and that's going to actually allow me to have a gap on both sides, and that'll give some airflow to the extension cord that is going to hold all my cords in there. And then put the front on, back on, and create a little box at the bottom. And I'm going to do all of this using 1¼ inch pocket hole screws and wood glue. And all of the exact details on placement on everything is going to be on the plans on CraigTool.com. Well, I've got it assembled, and I discovered a couple problems with my initial design that I'm going to be adjusting on the plans that I share. But I wanted to share it with you, as you can see exactly what happened. So when I did the original shelf for the tablets, I took measurements, but I didn't bother thinking about cases, and I have these big beefy cases on my kids' tablets, so when they drop them, it's less likely to break. But it does not fit on my shelf. So I'm going to pop this shelf off, and I'm going to replace it. The bottom, instead of a 1x2, I'm going to do a 1x3, and that'll push it back another inch, so it'll give me room on my shelf for the tablets. And then I'll hurry up and reinstall that. I'm going to do it before my glue dries, hopefully. The second issue is on the bottom, the shelf was just supposed to hinge like this. Well, if I have this, my plan is to mount this on a wall, so it's just flat up against a wall. But I won't be able to open my little compartment, and this is where I will put a extension cord and all of the cords, and then I'll just have them come up with a couple holes and go directly to the devices. So it won't work as is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip this board down so that the back piece sits permanently attached, and then I'll put the hinges here so that way I can still open the front and I won't have to worry about the back getting in the way. So I'm going to make some adjustments and then come back and finish this. Okay, I've got the adjustments done, and now I can successfully hold a tablet on that shelf, even with the thick, chunky case. So I'll make sure that that is noted in the plans that I share. So the next step is I'm going to measure the top and cut my 1x2 to go over the top, and I'll just be attaching that with some wood glue and a couple finishing nails. I'm also going to attach the back of my lid with some wood glue and finishing nails. And I did want to note that when I cut the lid piece, I ended up cutting it just a tiny bit shy. It's like maybe a 1/16 inch shy. That will just make it so that this piece isn't super tight and it can move. And that, of course, will also be noted on the plans. So I'll attach this, I'll attach the top, and then I'm going to cut some 1/4-inch pieces, 1/4-inch thick pieces of wood to go on the very front here as just a little brace to hold the electronics. We don't want these to be falling off the wall. And those two will get attached with some finishing nails. And then I'll be ready to sand and stain. Okay, before I sand and paint or stain, I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do on this yet, I do need to make a couple holes. So here's the plan. I bought this box that will, it actually has 10 USB ports on it, even though I only need the 6. And this is going to be attached inside of this little box area. So I'm going to need to have a hole coming from the bottom big enough for this to come through. And so I can plug this in, and then I'll have the cord go out the bottom and plug into an outlet below the charging station. Then I got these little cord holders, and I'm going to place them, wherever I want the cords to come through to attach to the electronics. So I'm going to put a hole on the back of each side in the box so I can take the 3 cords out the back and then have them input into the cord holders up on that side and 3 out this side. So after I make those holes, I am going to sand and finish everything, fill nail holes, do all of that. And then all I have to do is attach the lid. And to do that, I'm just using these really inexpensive little hinges. And I'm not going to recess them into the wood because it's actually going to keep the lid open away from this, which is going to account for the kerf from me ripping the board. So that way the front of the lid should be pretty close to the front of the box, which is what it's supposed to. It'll also give me a little bit more airflow with this electronics inside of a box. I figure extra airflow can't hurt. So I'll attach these and put it there, and then I'm all done. I finished off my charging station with a few coats of a wipe-on polyurethane, and it looks amazing with all the electronics plugged in. And now I don't have to worry about anybody losing their electronics. They have a place to be when not in use and to be fully charged. So make sure to head over to craigtool.com to get the plans for yourself And if you like this video, hit subscribe and follow along on housefulofhandmade.com for many more builds for the home.